Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is Don't Cool Off for Summer with Agile Education Marketing, and we are delighted that you're taking the time to join us and go through some information that we've pulled together and gathered, and we thought would be really interesting as you start to really think seriously about how you're going to approach marketing over the summer. And we definitely felt like there were some widely held beliefs about holding off in the summer, and maybe teachers aren't really engaged. And so we did a little research, pulled together some numbers, and we've got Derek Dallmann, who is our VP of Sales, as well as Verlan Stephens, who's our managing partner and CIO, who are going to be sharing a lot of information and data that will help to inform some of the decisions that you want to make and help you really plan your summer marketing activities to be really valuable and effective for your business. Also on the line, this is myself, Elizabeth Acton, and I am joined by my fellow marketing team member, Kara Murphy, who will be managing all of the tech questions. So if you have a question about audio or specific slides or anything about today's session, when you send a chat message on the right-hand screen, Kara will be fielding that for us. So thank you very much for that, Kara. And then I will be hosting all of this session today. And let me go through first a few housekeeping items, if I could. We are recording this session, and you will receive a link. It usually takes between a day and sometimes up to 2 days for us to put together the final recording. It will also be on our website as well as our YouTube channel. And on our YouTube channel, you can find probably at least the last 2 years worth of webinars, lots of different topics if you want to take a visit over there and see what else you might be able to use as you plan for summer and definitely start to think about back to school marketing, but we're going to focus on summer today. I also know that Verlan wanted to welcome everyone. So Verlan, if I could hand it over to you really quickly.
Thanks, Liz. Before we begin today's webinar, I'd just like to take a moment to thank all of our customers for being a huge part of helping Agile celebrate our 10th anniversary. We're so grateful for all your support and everything that you've done to allow us to have the success we've seen over the last 10 years. When we founded Agile 10 years ago, we really set out to do a number of things to separate ourselves from the rest of the people in our particular marketplace. First was to have better data, better service, and to deliver more innovative products to our customers. We still strive to do that every day today. And we, again, thank you so much for everything that you've done to allow us to have the success we've had. Back to you, Liz.
Thank you so much, Verlan. Yes, really, we love our customers and we love working with you all. So thanks so much for everything, and definitely for making time today. I think that you're really going to get a lot out of this. So let's take a look at what we are going to cover today. So we wanted to really spend some time on why summer marketing matters. And, Derek really put together some great thoughts, and you'll see that it's not just about your in-market activities, really thinking about setting yourself up in general for really strong, great marketing throughout the year. And then, thinking about how you want to market to different positions. And this is where Derek's going to talk to you specifically about these roles and things that you'll want to consider. Verlan is going to follow up with really digging into some of the data points and like response trends and things like that, as he dug through a lot of the data from our direct marketing efforts. And some really tried and true sales and marketing strategies that, again, make the best use of your summertime. And then the email trends and some best practices that, we've learned over the years. And, it's what I have liked the most about what's been pulled together today is, it's more than just the email that shows up in the inbox, right, to make a successful campaign. And so we'll give you some insights on that front. And remember that questions, we're going to wait until the end. And on the right-hand side, you will see the menu, and there is a section called questions. So input your questions there, and we will take those at the end. So Derek, if I could hand this over to you.
All right, thank you, Liz, and thank you everybody for joining us today. So, summer marketing matters. Here's why you should continue your marketing efforts. Traditionally, for education marketing sales professionals, summer has been spent on analyzing the previous school year the key performance indicators like engagement rates, leads generated, sales, etc., and planning for the upcoming back-to-school season. There's several reasons to continue your marketing and sales outreach during the summer. One, open and close dates vary. We'll look at some of these open and close dates for schools in the next few slides. Also, there's unused year-end budget. The major thing to note here is the K through 12 budget cycle. The standard fiscal year for schools and districts in the K-12 market ends June 30th. And in some cases, institutions will hold on to their 2018-2019 school year budget just in case anticipated funding didn't come through for 2019 and 2020. We have seen this happen during times of economic and political uncertainty at all levels, whether it's local, state, or the federal level. So we see that some districts and schools will hold on to that money. So there is an opportunity to take advantage of that unspent year-end funds. Also, administrators work over the summer. Teachers are still engaged as well, but with teachers we'll cover here in Verlan with some stats, you'll need to change your approach to this particular segment. One thing during summer too is there's less competition for attention for district and school personnel. Most companies do wind down their marketing outreach during summer, so you have less competition in the inbox, mailbox, and digitally for their attention. Also, these particular personnel are not involved that heavily with students and parents during the summer months. I did want to note on this slide too, there are some institutions still open. There are approximately 4,300 year-round schools that are in session during the summer. Also, if your products or services align with public libraries or the early childhood market, they are open year-round. Also, higher ed is similar to K-12 in terms of those administrators, support staff, operations facilities, etc. personnel are open. One thing to note too is if you are in the athletic arena for your products and services, fall sports do typically start before school opens. So keep that in mind if you're in that area. As you can see on this slide, these are the number of districts that are opening by week. The vast majority of districts start closing in mid-May and through typically mid-June, the bulk of those. Keep in mind that these will fluctuate. I know there's a lot of areas that had inclement weather in certain regions. I know in the Midwest we've had a lot of school closure dates that they need to make up. I'm sure the Plains, seems like almost everywhere in the northern area and mountainous regions had some cancellations during this previous school year. So keep that in mind that some of these makeup dates will push out the end of the school year. These dates can also help determine the marketing calendar and timing for your summer marketing initiatives. Typically, when school ends, they have a wrap-up period, which is their main focus. So that can help you plan your calendar for the summer marketing. And also I just want to make sure everybody is aware that Teacher Appreciation Week is May 6th through the 10th, since it's on this calendar. So be sure to participate in showing your appreciation for this very dedicated and committed profession that makes a big impact on not only their students, but their community and society as a whole. So be sure to include that in your sales and marketing efforts here in the very short term. All right, when do I start my back to school season? And, determining, when to start is dependent on the school start dates. I always recommend for clients to look at this in 3 different buckets in areas and groups. One is the schools that start early, the schools that start in the middle, and then the schools that typically start late after the Labor Day holiday. And as you can see, most of these districts have school start dates that start in typically mid-August through the first week of September. Now, the key here is by separating these into 3 different groups, it can help with timing, because if you start marketing to early starting schools in September, you may miss your window of opportunity, because the school year has begun. It's a hectic time. It's hard to get their attention, and they may have already made some purchasing decision at that point. And during the summer months on the K-12 marketing calendar, we're typically in the planning stage. For us as professionals, and also for educators and administrators, they're looking at the planning stage here. One thing that you can do as well is, during the summer months in marketing and sales is, you look at optimizing your website, sharing case studies or success stories, hosting webinars or professional development events, whether it's in person or virtual. It's a great time to look at, your customers and do some analysis on that, as well as also from a sales side. Territory planning is key during summer as well, and is a great time to do some market research. Also, I would recommend, during the month, and Verlan may cover this later, is look at some data hygiene and enhancement for your current customer data. Overall, during the summer on this calendar, it's a great time to connect with decision makers when they have time to look in research, find information for the upcoming school year to help solve their challenges. So it's a great opportunity in summer, especially for district personnel and school administrators, to connect with them as you usually do. Looking at one group of focus of the WHO, district and school administrators. Typically, they're on an 11 to 12-month contract. During the summer months, a lot of times they're focused on implementation, in terms of new technologies, curriculum, facilities, communication platforms, anything that they've purchased. And typically in July, it's an onboarding area where they're focused on those implementations. Also, they're focused on staffing, professional development, not only for themselves, but their staff. They're also doing assessments, looking at the previous school year performance, setting goals for the next school year, and seeing where areas they need to improve their proficiencies. School culture, many times, and safety are looked at during this time. Unfortunately, during that time, creating a safe environment is key, just because of all the different things that have been happening here the last few years. So that's a big focus as well. And also there's curriculum changes. State standards change, areas of focus where they need to improve change due to the previous year's student performance. Overall, it's a great time. They're not consumed with direct student and teacher matters at this time. So it's a great opportunity to continue to get your brand, your message, and the value of your organization in front of these key decision makers. One thing to note too is understand the district and school climate and the challenges when you deliver that content, so it's relevant, which can increase their engagement and response rates. Now we move on to the teacher market. Teachers typically are on a 185 to 190 day contract. They do have purchasing autonomy for certain products in their classroom. Also, they're very big influencers in terms of planning, purchasing recommendations, the implementation and adoption process. They're very key in those areas. If teachers aren't on board, as you know, if you've had some experience with this, it's very hard to get them on board with your implementation, which can affect the success of your product and service. The funding sources that teachers typically use for their purchasing are discretionary funds provided by the school or district. Out of pocket, on average, teachers spend anywhere between $400 to $600 each year out of their own money for purchases. One thing to note is new teachers tend to spend more out of pocket just because they need they need more resources, more content, more supplies and materials for their classroom. One other funding source to think about is crowdfunding. We've seen this an increase in both the classroom and at the school level. So overall, if there's any way that you can assist teachers, schools, districts to find the funds to purchase your products and services, it can benefit both the teacher, school, and your organization. Now, looking at the types of purchases that teachers do make during the summer and also back to school season, they're heavily purchasing classroom supplies just for themselves and for their students, we find very often. Also, teachers determine many times what the school supplies that the students will need for their class. Summer is a great chance to make sure that teachers do add your products to the list. Other types of purchase they make are instructional materials, lesson plans, posters, supplemental content. They're also purchasing professional development, whether it's continuing education credits for teacher licensing, whether it's to continue their degree into a Master's of Ed, or other certifications that they may look at. Also during this time, they look for ways to help hone their skills, in terms of classroom behavior management, subject matter areas, etc. One other thing, types of purchase that you can look at too. I don't know if anybody on the call in the webinar here sells consumer goods or services, but teachers are a great audience for certain products such as travel, because they have time during the summer to travel, entertainment, apparel, retail, finance, banking, services, and insurance. So many of these consumer organizations do offer teacher discounts for their products and services. Looking at marketing here on a marketing calendar, planning is a perfect time during summer. You can use the start and end dates that we've showed from our database earlier to help develop the timing of the campaigns during the summer and also back to school. Summer is a great time to look at, do a content audit. What worked this previous school year? What needs to be revised or updated? What other content do we need to create? Are our marketing assets mobile friendly? Things like your website, form fills, landing pages, fonts, images, etc., is to make sure during this time that your content is mobile friendly, because we find more and more teachers, administrators are engaging with content on mobile devices. So you don't want that to be a hindrance to them consuming your content or filling out a form. Another thing to look at too is customer journey updates. Looking at, re-examine the journey of your customer from suspect to prospect to lead to eventually customer. Keep examining that. Also, where the bottlenecks or roadblocks are in that process. And also, is there a way to shorten the sales cycle or better re-engage certain leads that may have dropped off? With customer journeys too, this is a great time to look at your lead scoring system and adjust accordingly. It may be where you're providing, you may be providing too many leads to the sales. There's a way for you to better qualify those and adjust your lead score. Or it could be the opposite of that, where you're not providing enough leads to sales, and do you need to adjust that score accordingly as well? I find during summer, for marketing professionals, it's a perfect time to analyze your audience and what we call like persona groups. I would always recommend looking at both institutional and personnel demographics. For institutions, way to segment your markets, school type, public, private, Catholic, charter, how you speak to them will differ. Grade levels, geographic regions, in terms of states, also enrollments, how you communicate to a certain district person, district administrator at a small rural district will be different than you communicate with the district personnel at a large suburban or urban district. Also, there's funding that you can create audience and personas for, whether it's Title I, IDEA funding, career tech ed funding, STEAM, STEM, etc. Some other areas too you can look at is student performance data, whether they are meeting their proficiency levels or maybe they're underperforming and they need help. So how you communicate using student performance data can make a big difference. Those that are underperforming, their main focus and objective is how can I help my students read, write at a certain proficiency, and that's their main objective and focus. There's other areas too that you can create personas. Agile has some EdIntel information, whether it's regarding learning methodologies, learning management systems, SIS systems. So we do have information on that. Also, E-Rate is a great one too, especially if you deliver your product via video or through certain digital channels where you want to make sure those districts and schools have the bandwidth. From a personnel side, job function is always key. The one area that I would definitely recommend people creating a persona or audience for is new personnel, whether it's leadership or teachers. From a leadership standpoint, when there's changes in a district or school, that is a risk and an opportunity for organizations. It's a risk if they're a current customer because they may be looking for different solutions. It's a time where many districts and schools will change vendors because of new leadership. Also, for their opportunities there. So if you're not working with that district, there is new leadership, or you're working with that school, and there's someone new that comes in, he or she will bring their team in, and you'll see a big turnover there. They're looking for different solutions, so it's an opportunity for you, for your marketing and sales team to get in front of those new leadership. New teachers, I highly recommend focusing them as a group, going back 2 or 3 years. They have greater needs for materials, greater needs for content, for professional development, and you can be that partner. Also, they spend more out of pocket, as I mentioned earlier, and they have a higher lifetime value as a customer for you. Some other things to look at too would be personal demographics, household income. Age is one that I think is underutilized, where if you have certain customers, if you have teachers as customers and that's your market, what age range are they in? And it could help you from a planning standpoint, where if you have a lot of teachers that are customers, but they're getting closer to retirement, that can have a big impact on your revenue. So it's time to focus on some new teachers. Also, for marketing, it's a great time to look at your marketing automation system and clean up any inactives, find any duplicates in your system. And a lot of clients during this time of ours will look to match their data to our database to append certain demographic data, like I mentioned earlier, to help create those audiences and personas with the data in your marketing automation system. Also looking at a multi-channel approach during summer. We recommend this highly, where and how individuals consume information and content varies. And now more than ever, there's so many different channels that teachers, administrators can get information and find out about products and services. ideally, it's basically a personal preference. So you want to to be accessible to your audiences where it makes to their preferences where it makes sense. For the multi-channel during the summer, home data, I'd recommend these for hitting teachers during the summer, just to get a jump start on the back to school season and the out-of-pocket purchases. Email is still effective, especially at the district and school level. Teachers, Verlan will show some stats later here about some of the open and click rates during summer, and you'll see how that affects teachers. Also, social is perfect during summer, especially to teachers. And also, I would say administrators, it's a great time to keep your brand top of mind on those channels that they're engaging in. It's a great way to use in your. It's a great way to include in your marketing mix to get in front of those decision makers and influencers. And from a social side, just to plug what we can do, we can help you on your social marketing campaigns and manage that for you. Or if you're working with an agency or you have an in-house team, you can leverage our data to help target that audience that you're focused on. Direct mail, wanted to mention this. There is much less competition in the mailbox than there was 5 to 10 years ago. This does still work. We have clients that do still use direct mail, but they use it more in a tactical manner to current and past customers, to pre-qualified leads, or even to hard to reach districts and schools where it's difficult to get in front of them through other digital channels. I did want to mention other channels. Consider, trade shows during the summer. I know ISTE is this summer and in Philadelphia. Also, there's advertising, web and print opportunities where they do publications during the summer, and press releases as well, especially if you're launching new products or enhancements to your products. One thing on the marketing side I always recommend is to test and track. So test new audiences, test new markets, test new channels, try different call to actions or images or subject lines, just so you can get an idea of the performance that you can apply that knowledge to future campaigns and make them more successful. So be sure to constantly test and track those tests so you can get the best return on your investment for marketing. All right, and we can't forget about sales. So sales activities don't stop over the summer either. It's a prime opportunity to get face-to-face meetings during the assessment, planning, and implementation phases with those key district and school personnel. And it's also a great way to develop new relationships and solidify current relationships. As I mentioned before, the end-of-year funds, a lot of times companies will focus on current and past customers to see if they have any funds available that they need to spend before the end of this school fiscal year. One thing to know on the year-end funds, understand the dollar limits on purchases that need to go out to bid. So many times districts will have certain caps where if a certain purchase reaches a certain amount, they're required to put that out to bid. Other things to keep in mind for the year-end funds is the pre-approved vendor lists. A lot of times you have certain districts, you have to be a pre-approved vendor, and this can lengthen that cycle. And be sure if you're reaching out for year-end funds that if they do have a pre-approved vendor list that you're on it. There's also upsell opportunities for sales, with new products that you may be rolling out for back to school. Also during the implementation phase, you can identify future needs or maybe the short-term leads that they need something. Site visits are great during summer. There's less distractions and more time for those school and district administrators. There's ability to have conversations regarding the challenges and goals for the school or district. During that time, you can look at what transpired last school year, where they need improvement, where their challenges are, their goals, and how your organization can help them succeed. Territory planning during the summer is great. You may want to look at sales structure, your distribution channels, see if there's anything you want to revise there. A lot of companies will leverage enrollment and funding trend data to see where there's opportunities of growth. Also, with territory planning, we do for some customers too is market penetration reports with revenue using our Agile e-profile service. So it can help you identify areas where you're over or underrepresented in certain market segments. And also, if you add revenue to it, it gives you a much better picture of where the revenue is coming from, what types of schools and districts, and help you identify those areas you can take advantage of and grow that you may not even be aware of. Also, if you're looking at account-based strategies, during the summer is a great time to look at your CRM and look at the data there to see if there's ways that you can clean the data. I know from a sales side, it's a lot of times hit or miss with sales teams entering or deleting data within their CRM, and this summertime and the lull there can help you clean up that data. Or also enhance certain data in terms of demographic data, so you have a better idea of what that district or school or individual is like before you have the conversation. So you can spend more time talking about their challenges and needs and how you can help that school or district instead of doing the discovery on there. So that can definitely help shorten sales cycles and help you dive into those conversations to better understand the challenges and pain points of those districts. So at this point, I would like to hand it over to Verlan, which he'll cover some valuable stats and insights regarding marketing over the summer. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate all the information that you pulled together for that. I think there's a lot of key points there for people to be focused on and lots of opportunities to continue to reach out and engage with the appropriate people during the summer months. So for my portion here, we went and did a lot of research into summer email response trends. We looked at, how we sent last summer between May and September over 100 million emails, and we looked at, what the volume looked like, who responded, how they responded, and then we also did a survey in terms of how particular teachers are now consuming information, to Derek's earlier point about, go to where they're at. So when we look at the volumes, no surprise there that, tailing out of May, we're running about 20 million emails a month. It starts to taper down. From our own sends that we send on behalf of our clients, we hit the low point in July, and then from July through the 1st of September, it dramatically ramps back up again. Back to school time, we're sending 30 million emails in September, and so very high volume. And so it's super important for people to really make sure that you have a message that's going to stand out. It's highly relevant. It's something that people are going to click on, because that level, when it comes back to school, is, I use the term, it feels like drinking from a fire hose for many of these people. They're dealing with all the back to school issues, things not working correctly, staffing issues, parents, and suddenly there's a massive email coming in. Make sure that your stuff stands out in terms of that from the rest of the mix. When we look at individual open rates, this is the first time we've actually broken it down to look at the various categories of people, from school administrators to guidance counselors, elementary and secondary teachers, district administrative staff. And so we really got to look at how different groups respond. And not a big surprise, the teaching staff tends to drop off fairly dramatically, almost in half in terms of their email open rates during the summer. And we think that, we believe that's a real combination between turnover of staff. Most of your teaching staff tends to turn over in the summer, so there's an immediate drop somewhere between 15 and 20%. And you take that on top of teachers that aren't opening their email often during the summer, and you see that kind of drop off. So, but we do know that still, roughly half of the response rate that we see in the fall, in the spring, continues through the summer. So there are plenty of teachers still out there looking, but not at the level that they are during the school year. If we start to break out and look specifically at the administrators, we see only a very small dip. So as Derek mentioned, most of them are on 11 or 12-month contracts. We see a little bit of a dip in July as most of those people try and get their own vacation time in. But largely, it is very momentary and not a very large drop and rebounds quickly. So, you know, as you would expect, those district administrators, and to the slide we saw too above, the volumes are much less. So they're there, they're opening emails, and the volumes are 2 to 3 times less than what they are in the other portion of the year. So really they're got to be considered the primary audience you're looking for in those summer months in terms of outreach. And for all the reasons Derek outlined, you know, they're looking at a lot of things, and so it's a great time to be engaging with the school and district administration. When we look at, you know, the people that are directly engaged with students, between guidance counselors, elementary and secondary teachers, we do see that big drop come in during the summer months. It was interesting to us that guidance counselors really outperformed everybody else throughout the year as a general rule in terms of their open rates. So that was an interesting piece. We'd never really looked at kind of aggregated response rates based on role within the schools. So this was the first time we got to see that. And it was interesting that it's so much higher. As I mentioned at the beginning, we just did a survey recently about how people consume information, how teaching staff in particular consumes information, particularly over the summer months. So, you know, we asked the question of how often do you open your work emails during the summer? And still 30% are opening them daily, you know, kind of reflected in the open rates and things that we saw, 48% weekly. So in total, 78% are still maintaining daily or weekly email cadence on that. We see another group, though, that drops, you know, 1% goes to either monthly or rarely. So, you know, maintaining the appropriate cadence of, you know, weekly or maybe slightly less is going to be important during this period, so you're not kind of overwhelming teachers with the amount of contact that you're reaching out. So interesting. This is new information. First time that we've really queried them about this particular topic. The next is we asked some questions about their social media usage, first for professional purposes. So, you know, it was real interesting. The number that are now engaging YouTube for professional development was fascinating to us, that over 30% now utilize that as a means of finding professional information for teaching. So real interesting. You combine that with Facebook, takes you up to 50%, and then you add in Pinterest, and you're really at 70% of the teachers and their utilization of social media in terms of professional usage. We also asked about personal usage. So, you know, similar there, where the 3 big ones, if you will, YouTube, Facebook, and Pinterest are still the ones driving the highest usage on a personal basis. And when you're reaching out and using social advertising, you know, knowing what channels people are likely to respond on and where they're going to be, either for professional purposes or even for personal purposes, that it's an effective means of outreach and way to get to those teachers in those summer months as the influencers that they are in the purchasing decisions made at the schools. We asked them also, what are the items you're looking for, you know, in terms of your classroom challenges? Number 1 was behavior management. Teachers are continuing to look for help in managing behavior. Second was student engagement. So how do I keep my students engaged? You know, we increasingly deal with a student audience that is so overwhelmed with multimedia and quick response. You know, what kid doesn't go to YouTube to go find things about how to do something? Well, it's hard for teachers and many times to compete with that level of entertainment value. So they're always looking for means of improving student engagement. But they're also looking for time management. The teachers in my family, I know, particularly at the end of the year, beginning of the year, are just slammed. How can I get everything done in the 12 hours I'm putting in each day to get it done before the next day comes around? So time management's an important piece. Differentiated instruction. So, you know, how can I individualize and personalize instruction towards students so that I'm engaging them in the way that they want to be engaged and they can most effectively consume the information I'm trying to get across. Followed up by classroom content. And then finally, professional development. You know, teachers are really looking for a broad range of things, and it was interesting to see how they're ranking the information they're looking for and what their top challenges are. We're going to move back just a little bit towards, you know, some stuff that Derek mentioned earlier about, you know, being able to clean, do hygiene on your data. It's so important for you to try and make sure you have as clean a list as possible. So starting with a clean list, you know, Agile averages more than 150,000 email changes every month to our data set, making sure that you're not just loading a file every 6 months or something like that. It's not near frequent enough in today's changing environment. So make sure you've got the latest information that's available and have that loaded into your systems. We also remove about 90,000 emails every month. So 10, 15,000 emails a week are hard bouncing, and those are getting removed from our file. So, you know, it's important to make sure that you're staying abreast of those changes as well. The other thing is, in the last 12 months, we saw more than 700 districts change their email domains. So as schools and districts are adopting new email systems, particularly Gmail and Microsoft, they tend to go through a domain change so that they can route emails to both simultaneously as they're making that transition. During that period, it's important to make sure you're getting your changes in and updated. And so, you know, because at some point, those old ones are going to start bouncing and no longer become available. And so it's important to get that information coming on. And those domain changes, you know, affect anywhere from a few hundred emails to 30,000 emails. When Hawaii changed their base server this last year and changed their email services, it affected 30,000. West Virginia, which had centralized email, did the same thing. So some of those domain changes are massively large effects on the overall database. The next piece is keep it clean. It's so important with that large amount of changes that are happening all the time to make sure you have the tools to keep your data up to date. So we have a series of products, Agile Connect and Connect Link, which allow for direct integration into either your marketing automation system or your sales or just Salesforce, and allow that information to be constantly scrubbed and updated against our master database. Utilizing products like Data Explorer allow you to pull real-time lists when you need them. And so you can, if you're driving your marketing campaigns, you can pull the latest information that we have available right before you do it and not have to depend on, you know, months before having that. Having a real data hygiene plan. How are you going to keep your data up to date? How are you dealing with these domain changes and these email changes and the large number of personnel changes? On the K-12 side, on our data set, we see 1 million people drop off every year and 1 million come on, almost a 25% turnover. So that happens continuously. So important that you have a real plan around data hygiene. The last is around data enhancement. When people engage with your brand, try and learn as much about them as possible by enhancing the data you get. Maybe you only get an email address and a partial school name. It's important to then enhance that so you know what their role is in the school, what the type of school they're with, so that you can really enhance and engage with that people, with those clients appropriately, and those leads to warm them up and deal with them. The last point, and we've touched on it a couple of times, Derek did, I did as well, make your emails or your outreach relevant to the audience. Be relevant. It makes such a difference. We have some clients that try and put out a very generic message and reach people, and we have other clients that drive very targeted messaging. Those clients that drive targeted messaging get 2 to 3 times better response rates, because they're doing things like having a separate message for school principals versus district administrators versus teaching staff, and trying to hit the relevant points for those. They're doing state-specific things and mentioning state-specific testing and curriculum needs. And so it's real important that you separate yourselves and make it relevant. The other thing that's so key there is that currently, between Google and Microsoft, they now control the email boxes for about 75% of schools and 75% of schools and districts in the country. And they judge relevancy based on engagement rates, both historical as well as the current campaign. And so the more relevant it is, the better inbox placement you get, and the more likely it is that more people then are going to work with it as well. So super important to be relevant to your audience. Test your subject lines, make your subject lines relevant so that you can drive the kind of response rates you're looking for.
Verlan, would you like for me to go ahead and wrap it up?
You got it.
Great, thank you. Thank you both so much, Derek and Verlan. Thanks. A lot of really great information. And so a couple questions have come through about getting a copy of the presentation. Yes, we are recording it, and you will receive in the next day or two a link to the recording, and it will be on our website as well as on our YouTube channel, because I know this is very dense, a ton of information. So just to sort of go back through, we started out, why does it even matter to market over summer? And for me, the big things there is think beyond just the actual active in-market activities. Think about taking this time to clean up your data. What other things, some territory planning. So doing some of those other pieces of the valuable marketing planning beyond just what you're putting in people's inboxes or mailboxes. And then, Derek, thanks so much, because you did a really nice job of digging into the differences in, the 2 key groups that a lot of our clients focus on, and some of the considerations, and how you can, if you help them find the money, if you help them understand how it maps to their particular challenges, that you are going to, 1, get their attention, and 2, really help them solve the issues that are happening in their classrooms. And then the research that we did, really, that's overall, right? It was student engagement and behavior management, and are the major things that are on teachers' minds right now. And so if you have any information, evidence, or case studies from your current clients that point out how what you offer addresses those, make sure that you're telling the teachers that that's what they care about. And then sales and marketing activities, thinking beyond just the inbox. And then thank you so much, Verlan, for putting together all that data and crunching all those numbers. And it was really the first time we looked at it, looking at the different roles, how they respond, and then how you can adjust your message. And I know that we have, some clients that do up to 24 versions of their messaging when they do a campaign. So that's just sort of a data point for you all to think about in terms of how you really want to refine and tailor your messages. And then Kara asks that I please also remind all of you that when you get the link, you will also get a survey, and we really want to know what else we can put together for you, what will be valuable, what will be useful, is it a deeper dive into certain aspects of data? There is a question, Verlan, that came through about private schools. So we're going to move into questions now. And so things like that, like what other markets we're, digging into early childhood. It seems like that's getting a lot more attention now. What will be helpful for you as you work to connect with the right types of educators? So definitely take the time to fill that out. So let's go ahead. Let's just move to questions, if we could.
Thanks.
So yeah, Verlan, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about private school data.
Absolutely. So yeah, we certainly cover the private school universe. In fact, we've really kind of upped our efforts in recent years there we process a lot of state level directories. We find a large number of private schools, either because of the lag in the publishing of the federal data set for privates, or the not meeting certain thresholds, or just the lack of participation in federal reporting. We find many, many more private schools by going down and processing private school directory information on a state-by-state basis. So we've really built out our private school file and are very happy with the large number of private schools that we do have on our current file. So we certainly do capture a large amount of private school data and make that available, as well as any public school data that we have.
Thanks, Verlan. Derek, would you be able to give everyone an overview of some of the social media services that we offer? And so let's see, there's two kind of questions. One is about targeting, and just one is just generally what types of social media services we offer. And I think from our recent survey, right, like YouTube, which I don't think we do, but you know more about that than I do. Twitter, Facebook, those are some of the major social channels for teachers.
Yes, yeah, I can cover that. For social channels, the popular ones, especially for teachers, are Facebook, Instagram. Those are probably the more predominant ones. Pinterest as well is very popular among teachers. For administrators, LinkedIn, Twitter are very great ones to leverage there. You could also use Facebook as well. We do help connect our clients to their specific audience and target their personas or audience and help. We can either deliver those social ad impressions to their audience on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Pinterest. We can also provide the data for maybe if they're working with an agency or you have an in-house team, provide data that way for you to match those up and then serve ads on those certain social channels. So there's a few different ways, and it just depends, on the resources you have and your partners.
Thanks, Derek. Let's see. And so real quickly, a question came through. Can you deploy social and email campaigns for us? So yes, and I don't know, Derek or Verlan, if you would like to add anything on that front.
Yeah, and I can
add Derek. Go ahead, Derek. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I with the social campaigns, we can help you manage that. So we can, target your specific audience on any of those channels I mentioned. We can, take what ad you want us to serve up. We can manage it, change things, change audiences during the process. If some areas, or if some audience or ad is performing better, we can always shift those resources to those, the impressions to those audiences or creative. So we can do the whole aspect of the social ad for you.
Thank you, Derek. Verlan, I'm going to combine a couple questions that are really specific about data. So one is around providing exact start dates. The next is about state-specific teacher lists. And the final one is about charter schools. So just just, I guess, in general, some of our more popular, more interesting data sets that we can offer?
So yes, we certainly capture start and end dates on a district by district basis, and then for private schools on a school level basis. So we do capture that information, and it is available. We actually changed our compilation process this year to gather school and 2019-2020 start end dates earlier in the process. So historically, we've gathered those during the summer, and we've moved those up to our mid-year update this year. And so we've already updated the vast majority of our back-to-school dates and everything for 2019-2020. So that information is available. For charter schools, we do a lot to follow charter schools. They're obviously a hot market, much more independent in their purchasing and decision making. And so, we work very hard to keep all of our information up to date on those charter schools, get those onto the file as early as possible. So we've already started adding schools that are opening in the fall. At this point, most of those have principals named. They all have, both physical addresses, phone numbers. So those are starting to flow onto the file now as the 2019 opening schools, including charters. What was the third question there, Liz?
Around states, state information, state level data that we have for teachers. It specifically was email lists for different states for teachers, but I'm wondering if we have other interesting things when it comes to looking at different states.
We certainly can segment data by any number of criteria. So we carry on an institution basis about 500 different data variables, and lists can be pulled on those. And obviously one of those is geography, and we can certainly pull on any type of geography, whether it's state, county, zip code radiuses, et cetera. So we do have that kind of ability. But we also carry things. I had a question just the other day. Do we carry state departments of education and their staff? We do. And so, they're another key audience, and as more and more of the federal money now flows down through the state and gets allocated at the state level, those are key decision makers and key people to reach out to as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, we have market type, like rural or metro. We have some of that, and I know that when I've done marketing into schools, I found that very helpful, especially when I would run an e-profile, like an ideal customer profile, and then you can use that to do lookalike targeting. So if you know that a particular product or service does really well in rural areas, then you go out to schools and districts that are also in rural areas that aren't currently using it. So yeah, we've got a lot of geography information, super useful. That I believe, and Kara, please keep me honest, but I believe I caught all of the questions that came through. Verlan, Derek, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you just thought of that you might want to share with everyone?
The only thing I'd follow up with is, just thanks to everybody for attending today. We appreciate that. And as always, we're here as a resource for you. So feel free to reach out to your account managers, reach out to your sales reps, your account executives, reach out to the team here. We're always here to help answer questions about the information assets that we have and ways that we can help you deploy that and reach the appropriate audiences or personas.
Thank you, Verlan. And thank you. Yeah. Derek?
Yep. And I'd like just to echo what Verlan said. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for a great 10 years for all the partners we've had over the last 10 years. And as I said, we're here for you. We want to help you succeed with your education marketing and your sales efforts to help you make an impact on teachers, students, communities with your products and services. So just want to thank again for the time, and we're here for you.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you very much, Verlan. Thank you, Kara, for keeping things running smoothly. We all very much appreciate that. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time and joining us today. We are 1 minute over, so appreciate you all staying on the line. Again, you will get a recording to this. I know a couple of you missed part of it, and so you'll definitely get a recording via email. It's also going to be on YouTube. It will also be on our website. And then please take the time to fill out the survey and share with us other topics that might be really useful to you for us to put information together around. And yeah, and definitely just reach out to us if you're struggling with something or would like to think about how you can better reach a certain group of teachers or educators. That's what we do. So we're here for you. And thanks again and have a great day. Bye, everyone.